This is a podcast all about Bears. You either cheering for this team or just pulling your hair. I like to take a minute, just sit right back and tell you how I became the #1 Bears fan.
That boy is Benny Hunter.
Cake on the mic, cake on the mic, cake on the mic, cake on the mic. People, this the intro. Sacramento, California, born and raised. And Antelope is where I spend most of my days. Talk bad about my team, you must be a clown. This is Keek on the mic, so you know you better bear down. Bear down.
What's going on, Bears fans? Before I get the episode started, I have to tell you guys about MyBookie. This year, I'm betting the football season with MyBookie. When betting with MyBookie, you'll receive a 100% match on your very first deposit up to $1,000.
Oh my God! Okay, it's happening. Everybody stay calm.
Betting with MyBookie this season was the obvious choice for me because every time this happens,
Touchdown Bears!
or this happens,
80-yard touchdown run!
I win. The best part about this whole thing is that you can support the show by using the promo code KOTM. So Bears fans, what are you waiting for? Go to mybookie.ag, use my promo code KOTM, and receive a 100% match on your first deposit up to $1,000 and make it a winning season with MyBookie today. Hey, what's going on, Bears fans? Thank you so much for joining me for another episode of Keek on the Mic, the podcast all about the Chicago Bears. Before I get this episode started, make sure you hit that subscribe button and the bell notification to catch all Bears content right around the podcast. Make sure you follow me on all my social media platforms, and make sure you share this episode of Keek on the Mic with every single Bears fan that you know. So, Bears fans, the Bears drop their Week 1 opener to the Los Angeles Rams by a very devastating score, 34-14. There's so many things going in my mind, so many different emotions, a little bit of angriness going on. I saw some good things, bad things. It's definitely a mixed bag, but I before I go any further in this podcast, I have to say that I was content with the way that Andy Dalton played. I think the game plan was very simple. Get the ball out of his hands. And for the most part, it was working. But the aggressiveness of the offense just wasn't there in terms of getting the ball downfield. And I think it had a lot to do with they couldn't. This offensive line did the best they could. But at the end of the day, they had to get the ball out of Andy Dalton's hands. There was never going to be any time for him to try to get a deep shot down the field more than 15 yards. Matt Nagy, I can say a lot of negative and bad things about Matt Nagy right now. But when you go for a 4th and 15 when there's points on the board, and when you call a play and the play wasn't even going to get you a first down, the throw wasn't even past the first down line, it starts making you question. It's just Matt Nagy is the problem for this Chicago Bears offense, and I think he's finally starting to get exposed. And for years, I think Matt Nagy was dodging a huge bullet, and he wasn't the one getting the blame for the Chicago Bears not taking this next step. It was always an excuse. But now the pieces are in place. The Chicago Bears have the pieces, minus maybe a couple of things going on with the offensive line. But when you look at the weapons, when you look at the way, for example, David Montgomery played tonight, the Bears offense has the pieces to succeed. But it's the inabilities of Matt Nagy's play calling that is holding this Chicago Bears offense back. And I think, in my heart of hearts, I have seen enough of Matt Nagy. I've given Matt Nagy the chance so many different times, but I'm really starting to get sick of it. I'm not even mad about how Andy Dalton played tonight. I think he did what Matt Nagy told him to do. Get the ball out of his hands quick. It's going to be short little passes for 5 yards, for 6 yards, for 7 yards. We knew going into this game, our offensive line was not our strong point. Even though they played decent. They played a pretty good football game. We knew that we weren't going to be able to go deep, but the inability of Matt Nagy's play calling is going to be a problem. Second thing I want to get off my chest about this game is that our defense played like absolute crap, especially when you look at the secondary. Matthew Stafford had 2 wide open bombs, 2 wide open receivers for 2 big touchdowns that really put us in a tough position. Granted, Matt Nagy going for it on 4th down at the 50-yard line did not help the defense whatsoever. But looking aside of what Matt Nagy did, overall, our defense was missing tackles. Our secondary looked weak. Our defensive line, I think, had 1 sack. We just weren't getting the consistent pressure that we needed. We couldn't get off the field on 3rd down. We just look confused. We look lost, and it looks like this football team is no longer playing hard for Matt Nagy. So the conclusion of this is that Matt Nagy needs to take the blame. It's on him. It's on nobody else but him. Obviously, we weren't ready for this game. It was competitive in the early stages, but we just did not execute. They brought Justin Fields in for a couple plays. He went 2 for 2 for 10 yards. Obviously had a rushing touchdown. It was nice to see that. Obviously, he's our future. And I'm going to keep repeating this until I'm blue in the face. I am not mad at the way that Andy Dalton played, but I do understand that Andy Dalton is not the future. Now, I'm not saying you're saying that we can't win with Andy Dalton. Matt Nagy needs to figure out this play calling, or he needs to hand over the duties. I strongly believe that this will be Matt Nagy's last season. And if it isn't, that's a big slap to all of the Chicago Bears fans' face. That's just a big F you to all of us. I'm trying to stay calm, trying to keep my composure. I had high hopes. Obviously, I did pick the Rams. I picked the Rams to win this game because this is exactly what I was afraid of. That Matt Nagy, once again, will be in the way of allowing the offense to take this next step. We can go back to the very first drive. We have momentum. Obviously, it's not his fault that Cole Kmet had offsides. Obviously, Andy Dalton had a tip pass. It was intercepted. Very next drive, there was a controversial PI call that was not called on Allen Robinson. But the inabilities of Matt Nagy's play calling and going for it on 4th down when you didn't need to. One certain time in the game that really bothered me is, I believe it was 4th and 15. He decided to go for it when we could have just kicked the field goal. Do you not trust Cairo Santos? Because last time I checked, Cairo Santos is a really good kicker. You take the points, Matt Nagy. Especially when you know your defense is struggling. You have an offense that can't really put up points, especially with your play calling. So you need to take the points. This is a very frustrating game for Bears fans. And when you watch the game, you see the capabilities of this offense. You could see what they're able to do. And it's just frustrating because it's finally getting to the point where now we know our offense is not able to score consistently because of Matt Nagy's play calling. And now we're having problems on the defensive end. Like I said, they look confused. They were blowing coverages. Wide open receivers in the flats. It was just ridiculous. It definitely was not the start that Sean Desai was hoping for this defense. They showed flashes like always here and there, but the inconsistencies of missed tackling, blowing coverages, like I said, was very disappointing. So when I go over the stats, like I said, Andy Dalton went 27 for 38, 206 yards, and that interception on the opening drive, which changed the momentum of the game. Very good first opening drive. It was going to be that statement drive. Instead of us settling for 3 points, we end up throwing an interception in the end zone. That was a really bad way to start the game. Then you look at David Montgomery, 16 carries, 108 yards, 6.8 yards averaging in this game, and a touchdown. David Montgomery is going to be that workhorse for us that whole season. If this offense wants any success, obviously you need to stick with David Montgomery. And like I said, I have faith in this offense. I saw flashes of this offense actually going in the right direction. But can Matt Nagy get out of his own ass and call a complete game and just be smart? Just coach smart. That's all we're asking as Bears fans. Of course, when you look at the receiving, Marquise Goodwin had 4 catches for 45, Cole Kmet 5 for 42, Allen Robinson 6 for 35, Damon Williams 4 for 28, Damiere Byrd 3 for 19, Graham only had 1 catch for 11, which that's a whole different subject, and then David Montgomery 1 for 10. Khalil Herbert had a good day. He was a big part of our special teams. It got to the point where they were kicking away from him, so that was a good sight to see. So like I said, there's negatives, there's positives. The good thing about this is that you learn. Hopefully they get better. Hopefully Matt Nagy can get out of his own ass, get out of his own way. But at the moment, this is on Matt Nagy. Matt Nagy's inabilities to call this offense is going to hurt the Chicago Bears all season long. So, like always, comment down below in the comment section and let me know how you guys are feeling about the Bears' 34-14 loss to the Los Angeles Rams. But before I let you guys go, make sure you hit that subscribe button and the bell notification to catch all Bears content right here on the podcast. Make sure you follow me on all my social media channels. And make sure you share this episode of Kick on the Mic with every single Bears fan that you know. Other than that, I'll be back for all new Bears podcasts right here on Kick on the Mic. Thanks, guys, and bear down.
Running with country bear. You ain't bout it, you ain't bout it, you ain't kick on the mic. You ain't bout it, you ain't bout it, you ain't kick on the mic. You can go and subscribe, cause I be on it right. You ain't bout it, you ain't bout it, you ain't kick on the mic.